What's going on, everybody? Thank you very much for tuning into another episode of Dr. Homebrew. Today we have 0 homebrew, but we have 3 homebrewers, and I think that's good enough. I think 3 homebrewers equals 1 homebrew. We do have a commercial beer.
Drink us.
That's right. Yeah, sure. Drink us in. Drink our voices in. We do have a beer to judge, and I will get to that in just a second. But before I do, I want to thank our sponsor, 5 Star Chemicals. You can go to 5starchemicals.com right now. Sign up for 5 Star's free homebrew club program in one of the links in today's show description on the podcast or on the YouTube channel. And you get free product, exclusive discounts, monthly educational seminars, and free swag. And in case you don't want to go to the links, you can just go to 5starchemicals.com/homebrew-club-program. And check that out too. 5 Star really want to reach out to the homebrewers and sort of give back and, you know, embrace the community a little bit more and, you know, make sure that you guys are doing the best that you can to clean and sanitize your homebrewing equipment.
I think it seems like they give you, if you have competitions, they can offer help with those and swag or something a little bit, maybe.
Oh, damn.
You have to work that out with them.
Nice.
Yeah, I was talking with one of their people at HomebrewCon, and it was, it's nice. I thank them for supporting the homebrew community and, you know, well, for supporting us too. But yeah, they've been around for a long time and put out good products. So gotta love them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, so here's what we're doing today, folks, and this is a weird one. We're going to be talking about Coors Banquet. It's sort of a commercial calibration. Usually the commercial calibrations we like to do are with, you know, the style guideline specific commercial examples of whatever style this is. But Schar, you were saying that they don't have Coors Banquet necessarily as the commercial example of the style, but they have Coors Original. And we're trying to figure out what the difference is between Coors Original and Coors Banquet. I assumed it was the same.
It's funny. Like, I was doing just a little bit of very quick research at the show break, and I've one source in Draft Magazine says they're the same. That it was that Banquet was rebranded Coors Original a while back to allow it to be brewed in Canada. They don't say why. That seems like like a strange statement.
Probably, I would imagine some trademark copyright thing. Yeah,
that's
not trademark, but copyright thing. Yeah.
As an IP guy, yeah, I'd probably.
I'm surprised that wasn't your first default. The trademark thing.
But yeah, probably something was called Banquet in Canada in like when in fact, Coors Banquet was first brewed in 1873. So there was probably something else, some other banquet beer in Canada in the 1800s that they probably couldn't sell there because it was some kind of banquet beer. There's a trademark issue.
Well, I think it was brewed in 1873, and Coors Banquet beer for 100 years was just Coors. That was what you get. But they nicknamed it. Says the Clear Creek Canyon miners nicknamed it banquet beer as they would drink it in banquet halls or huge banquet tents when there were no halls. They didn't officially name it that until 1937, trying to get a little nostalgia in during the Depression. But anyway, yeah, they've used whatever they can use to sell beer throughout the years. They've used it, I think, and they've stuck around all this time. So they must be doing something right. But you know, this is a beer that is, you know, I would consider it a category 1B of the BJCP, standard American lager, or, you know, maybe a premium version of American standard lager, kind of, you could think of it that way, but there's no special category for that. It's just 1B, something nice and light and drinkable. So I think we can judge it in that category of American lager and have it fit. It's not going to, you know, it's not going to go crazy on us and all of a sudden, oh wait, it's full of hops and like flavor, a lot of flavor. No, it's Coors.
I'm reading the history of Coors Banquet in Canada. Yeah, and they do say that they rebranded. It's the same beer. Coors Banquet is the same beer. It's just rebranded as Coors Original. That's it. They don't say why.
I wish I had more information, and I could do some real-time Google searching, but that might not be the best podcasting that people have heard.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's fine. It's, you know, it's brewed in Canada, in Newfoundland. They have a brewery in
Molson.
Newfoundland. So
Molson Coors, yeah.
yeah.
So they survived the prohibition doing porcelain stuff, chemical and scientific porcelain. They had previously gotten from Germany. So during prohibition, they made it here, and they made a non-alcoholic Coors they called pure cereal beverage. Then they brought banquet beer back after that, or Coors back after that.
I love pure cereal beverage. That's such a good name.
Cereal beverage. Yeah, they should bring that
cereal
back.
milk.
Now that NAs are getting more popular again, that could be a hit.
I love it. Dude, you don't get me started on NAs, man.
Yeah.
I love them so much.
They could put a cereal box look to their bottles and have it be a cereal beverage. It's wholesome.
So we have Coors Banquet. I have an old can, and so I Googled how to look at the pull dates on this can because I don't even know how long this has been in my fridge, but I'm going to drink it for the show. So the first, it's November, line 1, November. Oh, well, I mean, it's pretty fucking easy. The day is 08 and the year is 21. So this beer is about a year old.
Wow.
Well,
your glasses fell down
bottle.
on your face. In case people aren't watching the Facebook feed or whatever, YouTube, Cooper had his glasses up on his face, and JP said it was a year old, and his glasses fell right down from his head.
Yeah, surprised.
Yeah, I have that skill. I can just flip them down when I need to. Like I can see up close without my glasses very well, and then I just do this. But anyway, I got the fancy bottle here. This is the limited edition bottle, the Coors Golden Banquet beer, and the stubby bottle with the red cap. This one has a date on it of December 5th, 22, which I assume is the drink by date because they obviously couldn't have bottled it then.
That's true. This is the drink by date. So this beer, they usually do 6 months is kind of like the general rule.
Yeah, then it was probably brewed and finished in June, early June.
This beer was brewed in February of last year.
Oh, wow.
And I can smell it from here. It's about 2 feet away. And I can smell it. Tastes almost acidic, or it smells like a kind of acrid, and it smells skunked, even though it's a can. It's that kind of skunky, smell.
That's pretty fascinating to have a skunky beer out of a bottle. I got mine from Safeway this afternoon, and it has a drink by date of like December. And frankly, it tastes pretty clean, and I'm not getting any skunkiness out of this bottle.
Yeah, it's definitely paper. Like it's like classic wet cardboard. Almost like dirt, like earth. Mm. So I'm going to have a very different drinking experience than you guys. I'm also not going to finish it. I love me some Coors Banquet. I'm surprised I still had this beer lying around. But Cooper, why don't you go ahead and go first and tell us your impressions of Coors Banquet and how it might line up to the style or whatever even style it is. And, maybe afterwards we can speak on a little bit about maybe how to brew something like this.
Right. Again, yeah. So this is, I would consider it a 1B, a standard, they used to call it standard American lager, but it's American lager. And, you should get a little bit of malt in the aroma, grainy, little corn, sweet kind of impression, if present. You definitely have to get some malt out of this. It's not water, you're not smelling a glass of water. The hop aroma is pretty low in this style. This one, I think I get a little spicy hop, just a faint spicy hop aroma because there's so little malt there. And it is kind of a cereal-like kind of corny grain-like scent. And then just a little spicy hop next to that. It should be cleanly lagered. There's not a lot to stand behind here. So if they had big flaws in these, and as it gets old and goes past its enjoy by date, you will probably get some not so great flavors in there, despite how well they control the oxygen content at packaging. It's going to stand out. In these beers, also it should be noted that DMS, a little bit of corn-like DMS, cooked corn kind of a scent is not a fault. That's something that you can actually have in these. I feel like there is just a tiny touch of DMS in this. It's not huge, just a little corn-like cooked corn edge to the malt. That's in the nose. Appearance-wise, it should be pale straw to a medium yellow color. This hits kind of the yellow side of things here. Kind of almost a deeper yellow color to this here. The head just doesn't persist very well at all. You pour it, it has fairly fine bubbles. It's left here kind of coloring the glass, but they faded super quick, and that's to be expected. If you were judging it in a competition, you probably wouldn't actually knock it down for that. You would knock it down if it had any hint of haze at all. So it's got to be perfectly clear to be acceptable in the style. Should just be brilliant. And yeah, so in the flavor, it's a little bit of malt. You're not going to get a lot of hop. The bitterness is way out of the way. They call it a kind of a neutral palate, the BJCP, I guess. But it should be have a crisp and dry finish. Part of the key to this style is the drinkability and just the smoothness of the beer and how it goes down easy and dries off your tongue, and you want another sip. So, that's something to look at for sure. You want it to be refreshing. You also pretty much want to drink it cold, or it's not going to be very good. So, if you're drinking it on a 100-degree day, maybe like we have here, drink it
right.
Drink it kind of fast.
Daniel in the chat is saying, my understanding is that corn is used because it's cheaper, but all the corn I've found is more expensive than the Pilsner malt.
Right. Well, corn is used. Maybe at one point it was used because it was cheaper. I don't know the history of corn prices versus malt. I imagine that malt is harder to make. There's more steps to making it. And in the beginnings of the Industrial Revolution, maltsters might have demanded more of a premium for that than just a basic commodity like corn, agricultural product. If it is cheaper today, I'm not sure, but what it does do is it use about a 30% cereal mash. These can use either corn or rice. I believe the Coors does use a corn, about 30% of the beer, and you have to basically cook that corn. You have to do a cereal mash to get those starches to expose themselves and become able to be converted by the enzymes in the mash. And along with that, you'll use a 6-row barley typically that is higher enzyme content, more of those amylases, the beta and alpha amylases that break down those starch molecules into the simple sugars that you're going to ferment. So you need being even up to like 30% is quite a lot in any mash of any ingredient. It's going to take a lot more enzyme content to break that down. But what the corn does is that those sugars that from that are going to ferment all the way out to dry, and it gives you that nice dry crisp finish that you get in that beer. So again, the finish and the crispness and the drinkability, and just clean lager, not a lot of fruity flavors or anything in there getting in the way. Just a little bit of malt, maybe a touch of hop, almost no bitterness, goes down easy, dries off the tongue. You want another sip on a hot day. Good lawnmower beer.
Absolutely.
So I don't know. What do you have anything to add to that, like flavor wise or aroma wise? We talk about mouthfeel a little bit too. What do you think, Brian? You want to chime in?
Yeah, I think that I would pretty much agree with everything that you'd said. I'm a little bit stuffed up, and this is light enough that I'm having a difficult time smelling much of anything from this. But this is not a big beer. You're not supposed to get like giant nosefuls of hops and malt and everything else. This is refreshing. There's nothing off about it. I'm fortunate. I'm not getting cardboard. I'm not getting anything old. I'm always more partial to the American lagers that have corn rather than rice. And that's just a personal preference. I think the corn flavor tends to be maybe a little more pleasant than the rice flavor, at least on the mass market American beers that use corn versus rice. But I think it's very pleasant. I think it's kind of interesting. Mine is not super carbonated. You can see there's bubbles in here. It's certainly not uncarbonated, but I would call this maybe medium low carbonation in mine.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Compared to like a Budweiser or something where they carbonate the hell out of that, to my recollection. But it works. I mean, I don't drink this and think, man, this is flat. It needs more CO2. It really works for what it is.
Well, yeah, and being that it's almost 80 degrees in my house here, like 79 in the hallway here, looked like when we got home. Like,
Damn,
this is actually nice and quenching and refreshing. And yeah, that the carbonation is something that you can get. If it gets too high, those other ones that I don't like, you get a carbonic bite. It creates that carbonic acid biting to your tongue, and you can hardly taste those flavors. I also agree with the rice adjunct being a little more, even more neutral than it already is. Kind of just basic light malty flavor in there. The corn at least gives it a little edge, and if you get a little DMS, a little cooked corn, like, it actually makes it a little more interesting, I think. So it plays better. To me, I agree with that.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people shit on these beers, not because there's no flavor, but it's because we were sort of marketed to from, craft breweries. We were sort of, it's like the farm to table movement. We
drank the Kool-Aid. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, well, I'm better than this. And it's like, well, these beers are good. There's a reason that they're 50% of the market share. They're a good beer. It's a good beer. It's okay to like.
I would differ in that I believe, not Coors, I believe Budweiser has changed that significantly, but there was always something in Budweiser that I didn't like the taste of, whether it was Budweiser or Bud Light. And there was something in their process.
Budweiser's weird.
After InBev bought them, that went away, and that became a much better beverage. I've always thought Coors had the least problems of any of the mass market American lagers.
Yeah.
But no, Coors has always been, especially like Coors Light. Hey, man, you keep that cold. You don't let it get too warm, and you drink that. That's actually acceptable beer.
Keep those mountains nice and blue, right?
Maybe we should do
them real blue.
Maybe we should do an American light lager showdown.
We did that once.
That's a great idea.
There's a show. There's a show way back in history. We did the American Light Lager Smackdown. It was Coors. Well, we didn't do it with standard American lagers. We did like the light lagers, Coors Light, Bud Light, and Miller Light.
Who won?
Let's do standard American lagers, man.
I think it was Lee and I believe, and we didn't get it right. We presented them blind, and we missed. But I don't drink these day in, day out. So like,
I probably got them right. I'm just going to say I'm pretty good at guessing.
I think you were more right than we were, but
I usually am with that kind of stuff, like guessing the beers. I don't know why.
I think you can talk yourself into things when you know what something is. Like, oh yeah, this is a Budweiser. I can taste that beechwood aging on it. I mean, and that does the, and that rice adjunct. But if you're presented them blind, it is harder. But so I think what Brian was talking about there is with the Bud, and we're not drinking any Bud tonight, that beechwood aging actually leaves a little bit of acetaldehyde in the beer. It drops out the yeast a little prematurely, and it leaves a little bit of that behind that the yeast does not reabsorb. And whether there were changes made recently after that the takeover by the super mega huge corporation, I don't know.
That's a good point, because I mean, I haven't heard like a lot of Budweiser commercials lately, but I don't think I've heard the phrase beechwood aged for a long time.
It's been a hot minute, dude, for sure.
Yeah, so maybe they stopped doing that. I mean, that was a historic thing that they used to always do. I'm not sure it served them well.
Well, that would be a big change, because I mean, but I think they
still do it.
They work really hard to make that product taste as consistent, as much the same as possible, even going to the extent of blending. And probably all of them do this. Like, hops are an agricultural product, and a weird hop is going to stand out like a freaking sore thumb in a beer like this. So they massage the blend of the hops that they use every year to get it just right to meet that flavor profile. And when I took,
how much Simcoe was in here.
Yeah, I took classes at UC Davis, and Charlie Bamforth was teaching the week-long course in brewing and packaging, whatever it was, and he was doing some consulting for AB InBev, and he would talk about, he like tasted something once, and he's like, I think I'm getting a little bit of this in it. All of a sudden, they like calling meetings, and like 5 alarms ringing, and they're like pulling people in from different places to taste this beer. And he, just because he mentioned something being a little different in it, and he's got a good palate. Charlie's definitely no slouch there, but it was interesting to hear that, and they really do pay attention to that. I know they do, and he drinks it. You know, it's like
they definitely do. Oh yeah, I mean, and I think there's no shame in drinking these beers, and there shouldn't be. You know what I mean? There really shouldn't be. I mean, Budweiser they're just kind of like the asshole of the industry. So fuck Budweiser, but Coors, love a good Coors. Absolutely.
You know, but Budweiser's the asshole because of their distribution practices more than their brewing practices.
Oh yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. It is hard to make a product like this, and it's very easy to make an aggressive beer with a lot of hops that some minor defects and flaws can hide behind. And when IPAs became popular, it was natural. Like, oh, this is a very flavorful beer. And I enjoy a good IPA when it's well made, but if you get one that has a little bit of diacetyl in it, or it's just to the threshold, it's like something's wrong with this IPA. If that was in this lager, it would stand out. Like it would just taste like butter bomb beer. Like you just can't get away with that in this. So, you know, they're working on a product that's very consistent. Always, you know, when you drink it fresh, always tastes pretty much the same, and is very refreshing in a certain, you know, if I wouldn't want to drink this in the middle of winter on a cold day next to the fire necessarily, but summer on a boat, heck, sure, why not? I'll take one.
Absolutely. All right, what's next? I feel like we're almost done here, right?
Yeah, again, on the mouthfeel, yeah, I think maybe we'll have to talk to those BGCP guys. You know, it's like not all of them seem like very highly carbonated and have a big carbonic bite, and I think I wouldn't say this is off style. It's just it plays well, and you can have one with a little less carbonation on the mouthfeel side, and that's fine. So yeah, you know, these beers evolved from pre-prohibition lagers. There's actually, you know, you look in category 27 in the BGCP, you can brew one of those. Those are a little firmer, more bitter. The style evolved over time to what it became in the 70s, where less and less flavor was the you know, the recipe. And that's when, you know, late 70s homebrewing kind of took off, and early 80s craft beer started taking off, and into the 90s and into today, taking a bigger and bigger market share away from these guys. They pay attention. They may be, you know, subtly adding a little more flavor, you know, to the beers to make them, you know, more interesting. I don't know what they're doing, but they're keeping a good amount of market share and selling a lot of beer. So they're doing something right. And yeah, again, the aggressive marketing, the aggressive distribution practices, and taking over big, you know, space in supermarkets without allowing any competition. Yeah, that kind of anti-competitive behavior shouldn't be, you know, really allowed. But, you know, hey, it's a free market. People can buy this as much as they want.
That's right.
So yeah, you know, it's interesting to taste it, and I find this to be really refreshing, especially today. So yeah, thanks for making 100%. Me buy it, JP. Yeah.
Hey man, you're welcome. Mm-hmm. Look, the BN will reimburse you, dude. So you're welcome. Let's see what I get out of this one. This year and a half old. First of all, it's basically flat. Interesting. It's definitely like darker flavors, which might be indicative of the little oxidation that I was tasting, right? Because does oxidation sort of produce these sort of raisiny, more darker sort of like malt flavors?
You could call them, yeah, darker. So yeah, oxidative flavor is going to come across as more like papery, sometimes a little honey-like, a little something a little richer in there. But not like a malt richness, just like
it's like a cooked honey thing. Yeah,
cooked honey.
Yeah. But honestly, it's not terrible. It's not terrible. Yeah, it's like a honeysuckle honey. Hell, actually, drinking it's pretty terrible. It's very it's harsh. There's an aggressiveness. There's like a thing there that I don't like. But it's 83 degrees in the studio, and this can is probably well on its way to being there too. And you definitely don't want to drink these at, you know, close to body temp.
Right.
You have all kinds of factors working against that beer right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what do we give Coors Banquet for the style? Let's judge it, and then we'll take a break, and we'll come back, and we'll talk about off flavors.
Well, we might knock it down a touch. Just if you're just reading the straight guidelines and looking for that massive carbonation with a little carbonic bite, it doesn't have that. And even though I think it probably serves the beer a little better not to be so super highly carbonated and biting on the carbonic acid front, you can give it low mid 40s. Like, it's a refreshing beer. 40, 44.
Wow.
44.
It tastes
I might have
like,
gone like 38.
it tastes like you expect
like high 30s.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Would the carbonation being added to it make it more better? I don't know. I found it to be really refreshing.
High 30s? Schar. You're killing me, dude.
Can we meet somewhere in the middle?
My example isn't like a year and a half old and heavily oxidized and flat.
No, I mean, it should be higher. Coors Banquet is amazing.
Yeah.
How dare you?
I mean, 38 is almost 40. It's high 30s.
Well, yeah, I guess.
Or judge bias can come into play. It's like, I judged a round of light lagers and I gave them all 26. And they had no problems, but
exactly. Well, 38 is excellent, and so is 44. So that whole range is excellent. So we're all in the excellent category.
No, you got me on that. You got me on that one.
We're within like 6 points. Not bad. 5 to 7 points for a competition. We'd probably agree to like a 42, 43 for the final score if we were sitting judging it together. Why not?
Yeah.
Or if we're within 6 or within 7, like, hell, we just each give it our score and we'd average it out. It'd be like a 41, 42.
There you go.
Depends on if I twist your arm a little extra hard, we could get you up to a 43. I don't know.
Yeah. Daniel in the chat says he just kegged a smash beer, domestic or European domestic beer, and Daniel sent it in. Damn, dude.
Cool.
Yeah, that'd be great. Please send it.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a quick break, everybody. We're coming back. We're going to listen to Brian Schar talk about some off flavors. We're going to do a little beer education here on Dr. Homebrew. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere. All right, thanks for sticking around, everybody. We are back here on Dr. Homebrew, and we're going to be talking a little bit about off flavors, specifically weird off flavors. And who better to present weird off flavors than Mr. Brian Schar?
I don't know who would be better to talk about anything weird but me. We can start with off flavors, then move on to pick something weird. We can just start chatting. We'll just rap about it.
Speaking of weird, man, let me tell you guys something real quick. My drinking tastes have changed.
Really?
Yeah, like I'm sort of like less inclined to want beer and more inclined for like non-alcoholic beer. But I'm sorry to say, like, I'm sort of into the hard seltzers now.
What?
Yeah, specifically this Topo Chico brand, ranch water.
I've seen that at the store.
It's very good. It's 4.7%, and that's, I think, why I like it. Because I don't want just 6% alcohol water. Like, I don't really give a shit. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to get wasted. But it has a good flavor. It's refreshing, and it's low alcohol enough that it doesn't really bug you. I don't know. I kind of like it. So now I'm like, find myself trying different hard seltzers. There's one, it's not Maui Brewing Company, I think, but it's, the brewery's called I don't know, something like this is Maui on it, but it's like Pog juice flavored. That's okay. Yeah. So I'm sort of like branching out. So like you go in my fridge now, it's a very weird place to be. I have different non-alcoholic beers, which I found a Wellspring, I think, is one that does non-alcoholic, like a dark amber, which is very nice. It was a very good beer. I have this garbage, and I have Heineken Double Zero, and then I have like a McEwen Scotch Ale. Like it just, I don't know, man. I also had we were talking about Sierra Nevada potentially on the last segment. They have a hop water out now, and I forget what it's called. But it's, if you like the Lagunitas one, you're not gonna like the Sierra Nevada one. It's very bitter. It's like actual bitter. The Lagunitas hop water is not. It's like sweet, and it's more of those like sweeter notes of a hop flavor. The Sierra Nevada one's like almost grassy and just aggressive. It's bitter water. It's very weird. Taryn loves it. Even Alice drinks it, but I'm like, no, I can't. It's like vegetal. It's vegetal. And it was weird. Yeah, but give it a shot. Definitely try it because I do want to support that space. I do like those. I also got some Hop Lark. It's sparkling water with Sabro.
Okay.
And it's a little sweet. It's not my favorite. I still prefer the Lagunitas so far. So far, Lagunitas wins in the hop water wars.
Okay.
Maybe we'll do a show on that one day.
The hoppy refresher. That would be a really good show. I'm all for that.
I think it'd be fun. Yeah, because in the water and the way the process goes, it's not like tasting the hops in the beer. And maybe that's my problem. Maybe that's my disconnect. Like with this Hop Lark, they're all made well, but they're showcasing different versions of the hops or different flavors in the hops against the background of like a sparkling mineral water. It's weird.
So I'm going to back up to what you said about the Maui hard seltzer. So you go to their webpage and it says it's brought to you by Craft Beverages Hawaii LLC, located in Kihei, Maui, Hawaii. And their address is 605 Lapoa Parkway, Kihei. There's nothing that directly connects them to Maui Brewing, but Maui Brewing is at 605 Lapoa Parkway, Kihei. So they're at the same location, so it must be a Maui Brewing hard seltzer.
It must be. Yeah, interesting. Which I will tell you, the first one I opened was flat.
Interesting.
Well, that Hop Lark, if you look for them, they actually make some tea products that are hopped teas, and some of those are actually really good. It's expensive, but they've got Citra Mosaic one. They've got different flavors.
I thought it was
chamomile, the calm one. There's a green tea. There's a really hoppy one with black tea that's actually really good. I enjoyed it.
Is there? Okay, I'll try that. This is the other thing is I sort of want to be venturing into like CBD drinks instead of alcohol because I don't, you know what I mean? I think I might be moving away from alcohol and trying like hard drugs.
Yeah,
no, not really hard drugs.
Well, you can buy the THC beverages that aren't just the CBD.
Yeah,
like I like watermelon basil. That's pretty good.
I like the CBD stuff. I don't like getting high, but I like not feeling normal.
These teas
that pretty
and
much
waters,
24/7 for you, JP.
Well, yeah, but now that I'm on Zoloft, it's SSRIs are weird, man.
But you're drinking NA, there's sugar, there's calories, there's gluten, there's added flavors. Some of these teas and Hop Lark, they're kind of just pure, hops with tea.
And it's weird because 5 years ago I would have poo-pooed all over myself for even like branching out of that and trying these new things. Like it's all gimmicks. But fuck, man, sometimes it tastes good. And I sort of understand why these are in the marketplace because me, a beer drinker, I don't want to drink beer all the time anymore, but I still want to get some sort of buzz. Beer's not necessarily good for alcohol. Isn't great for you. It's a poison basically, right? Like it'd be nice to like have something else to drink that doesn't, doesn't mess with you. So I don't know. It's weird. I'm in a weird headspace with this, but anyways,
so
let's talk
about hard seltzer real quick. I was, so my wife loves the Truly, and frankly, I think Truly is decent if you're like out at the pool or something. And you just want something kind of light and refreshing on a hot day or whatever. It's fine for what it is. I hadn't realized that that's made by Boston Brewing Company, the makers of Sam Adams.
And
I wouldn't doubt that's probably a giant chunk of their revenue at this point because they sell a lot of that Truly. But there was a thing I saw, like a press release today about Truly now puts like a certain amount of actual real fruit instead of just the artificial flavorings in. So that's... I guess they're setting themselves apart from other ones. But frankly, the Kirkland brand, the Kirkland Truly, the Kirkland generic stuff, that shit's actually pretty good for the price.
That's what I hear. Yeah.
That's if you like a hard seltzer, they're not going to blow your socks off with, oh my God, this is the best thing I've ever drank. But they are what they are, and for the price, it's really hard to beat them.
Try this Topo Chico Ranch water, dude. It's sort of like lemon limey. Little sweetness, but not really. It's for me. God, they are 100 calories, but anyway, who cares?
Well, yeah. I mean, some of those you can be creative with. Yeah, the calories come from the alcohol. So if you get a non-alcoholic hop tea or a hop water, that's going to be 0 calories usually.
Yeah.
I haven't had many hard seltzers. I had a blackberry one at one point made by somebody. I tasted a couple, but I went to a local brewery here, Shadow Puppet in Livermore, and they had a mojito hard seltzer. Yeah,
Oh,
it
they're
was,
pretty good.
it was interesting. So
sounds
you
good.
had the mint. I had quite a bit of the mint flavor, but it was, it was interesting. It was good.
Okay, great.
I
All
don't
right,
know.
Schar, let's go.
All right. Well, let's talk
Off
about
flavors.
some more obscure off flavors than we typically talk about. We all know like the big ones, the
Like
oxidized
papery.
cardboard,
Yeah.
the phenols, the things. But there are some things that you can run into sometimes that are a little more obscure, but they're still bad. So I thought I picked like 4 or 5 of these and thought that I would run through these, not in a giant amount of detail, because you've met me. So you know my temptation is to spend the next 3 hours talking about these off flavors in excruciating detail.
Yeah. You
I'm
mean
not going to do that.
You
And
mean
if I
like the
start
intro
doing
to
that-
this?
Yeah, exactly.
You mean like you're doing right now?
Let me have the intro be about 10 minutes longer.
Yeah.
So just reel me in if I
Yeah.
start.
We only got 15 minutes left in the show, so
We're gonna
All right.
dive deep into isovaleric acid. Just wait.
That's
The
not one
chemical
that I
compound.
picked, Scoop. These are even more obscure than that.
Oh, wow.
So-
all right, let's go. I can't wait for this.
Number 1, mercaptan, also called ethanethiol. I'm not a chemist, so I'm sure every chemist in the audience is covering their ears and screaming at my pronunciation of ethanethiol. But
Hopefully.
let's call it mercaptan. So what's interesting about this one? So they give the perception as rotten vegetables, drain-like, sulfury, or rotting garbage. Yeah, that's clearly not a thing you want in anything you're drinking. But it's
No.
also the chemical they put in propane and natural gas to make it odorous. So that makes it kind of easy to spot, because if you're smelling your beer and it smells like natural gas or propane, you probably realize you've got an issue. I've never encountered this in competition. I've judged probably 100 competitions. I cannot recall ever experiencing this, but it's not something that you would want. It's apparently a sulfur compound, and it can make up a component of sulfury character. But if you can taste it, it's an off flavor because it tastes like rotting garbage or smells like rotting garbage or natural gas.
Basically a putrid smell. Yeah. It's
exactly.
CH4S. It's CH or CH3.
Oh God, so it's methane. I didn't have that chemical. It's methane with a sulfur on it. Oh my God, no wonder it's terrible.
Yeah. So and I think the chemical name would be methane thiol.
Yeah.
It's
methane. So are these?
Oh, that's what's ethan thiol. Okay. Ethan thiol is one of this. Yeah.
Methane thiol. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this something that could be just a singular off flavor, or is it generally in conjunction with other off flavors?
It's a good question.
Thanks.
It's generally caused. Apparently, it's caused by yeast autolysis and infection by anaerobic bacteria. So usually, if you have enough autolysis to have noticeable off flavors, or you have infection by anaerobic bacteria, my opinion would be that you're going to get some other off aromas and off flavors than just this.
Okay,
so
got it.
That's one of the I went through a variety of sources for this. What the how to avoid / control is to avoid mercaptan pickup from dead yeast. Siphon your beer off the yeast within 4 weeks of fermentation start. I'm not a believer in a secondary. I think you run more of a risk of getting an infection from bacteria in the air that you're going to pick up and making the transfer. And I think that if you're practicing fermentation temperature control, and you can set the temperature to like the 50s, 60s, or even the 50s for like an ale, you probably don't need to pull it off after 4 weeks. If you're having your beer ferment in your closet and it's sat there for a month and you're not going to have time to bottle it for a while, that might be one of the times that I might say, you know what, you might want to transfer to a secondary, or better yet, just make the freaking time to bottle it. Stay up till 2:00 in the morning on a Friday night, do whatever you got to do. It's not that much harder to bottle it than it is to transfer to a secondary.
Yeah.
But I think if you're not temp controlling, or if you're temp controlling, you can crash, even an ale, you can crash that thing down to 35, 40 degrees. And you're not going to pick up, because that temperature decrease, significantly decreases the metabolism of the yeast, which is going to decrease the autolysis, I believe. and you're going to decrease the amount of stuff you're going to pick up. But it is, as best practice, unless you've got a reason to have your beer on the yeast for a month plus, that's generally not a good idea, in my opinion.
Agreed.
So yeah, actually, and mercaptans, it's not just that one chemical that they add to natural gas. It's a family of chemicals. So from what I understand, it's a thiol. Something containing a thiol in it is a mercaptan. And another example of a mercaptan, they are some of the smelliest substances known to man. But a skunk's spray is
Yes.
a mercaptan. So when you get light struck beer, that's a mercaptan also.
Yeah.
That's forming.
Oh, that's interesting.
From reaction with the hops. It twists one of the elements in the hop from cis to trans or vice versa, and it becomes a mercaptan.
So that explains like an ethane thiol. Yeah, it's the sources that you find for some of the, especially the more obscure ones. The people aren't chemists like me. I'm not a chemist. And they write these articles, and they're not always consistent in their terminology. So it can be difficult to figure out some of the details there. I mean, if I had sat down for 3 days and found the original scientific papers, and the Journal of Journal of the Master Brewers Association and all that, I'd probably get the right information. But this is one of these things where the internet is generally right, but they don't have all the details correct.
Well, I'm not a chemist either, but from what I understand, they have a chemical structure like alcohol, but instead of having an oxygen atom in certain places, there's a sulfur atom there in its place.
That makes a lot of sense.
That sulfur that gives it that really big stench. So they're alcohol-like compounds that get a little sulfur in there by some method. It's gonna make that really stinky flavor. And sulfur, H2S, there's DMS, there's lots of sulfur compounds in beer that are definitely unwanted. And this is one of the less prominent ones, but it can come up.
And there is lagers, a certain low amount of sulfur can really say, hey, I'm drinking a lager and it's desirable and it's part of the flavor, but that's not this type of thiol.
Or like we're talking about with the Coors Banquet beer with the corn DMS. It's allowed in that beer. It's okay.
That's right.
And it didn't hurt the beer. There is a little bit in that Coors Banquet, but I found it gave it a little more interesting element to the malt. Not always a bad thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the next one I want to talk about here is mold. This isn't a thing we really encounter that much in California.
Yeah.
But it's a thing that people can encounter in more humid areas. And it's not like people don't. This is one I've actually encountered in competition here in California from folks. So and this is right from More Beer's website. So it's got to be correct because More Beer is they know what they're doing.
That's right.
It's something, if it tastes or smells like mold, mildew, or mustiness, it's mold, mildew, or mustiness. That's what's happened. Usually what happens is you're storing fermenting beer in a damp, dark area for a long time. And especially if you're in a place where it gets real humid and it's in your basement, for example, there's a lot of mold. I lived in Wisconsin for a while. When I was a kid, we had a basement. Every single thing we put in that basement had to get thrown out pretty much when we moved. It's everything got moldy. And we kept that basement clean. But it's just when you're in that house year in, year out, and it's damp in the basement and mold just grows. So that's a thing you got to be real careful when you're in an environment like that and you want to put your fermenter. I mean, I understand why people want to put it in their basement because the basement's cooler. The temperature is more steady because it's surrounded by dirt, and the dirt keeps the temperature. It kind of buffers the temperature variation from day to night, and it makes a lot of sense. But if you put your fermenter down there and maybe your airlock isn't sealed quite right, or some mold spores drifted in before you closed up your fermenter, you're gonna get mold. And in fact, More Beer says, I think I had never thought about this, but this makes a lot of sense. Using extract or grain that has developed mold can impart moldy and mildewy flavors. Right? So you're boiling it, right? So you're killing the spores, but the base ingredients have already been attacked by that. So if you're at the homebrew store, or if you order some grain from a homebrew store and you get it and you smell it, you should always smell your grain. It smells good. That's one of the great things about homebrewing, is putting that grain in that mash tun. The way that grain smells, it's fantastic. If it smells like crap, then you should pretty much just stop right there, because whatever you're going to get out of that is not going to taste or smell any better than that moldy grain that you put in.
Right. So, and also, you know, in the current the 2021 guidelines of the BJCP I'm looking at, you know, when you talk about mold in beer, it reminds you of the old days when you would talk about beer de garde. It would have this musty cellar like character, but actually, you know, I mean, that's more of a fault. The cellar, musty, moldy, rustic character mentioned in literature, it's a sign of a mishandled import, not a fresh, authentic product. So yeah, it's really never acceptable in good commercial or versions or homebrewed versions of any beer that I would think. It's yeah. no mold bad. You don't want it. Yeah, that's I could have you summarized in 2 words, Brian, what I went on and on about. Mold bad.
Mold bad.
Yeah, and I've actually have had a beer mold on me. It was it was weird.
That's disgusting.
Yeah. It's like, okay, dump that out.
Yes. So next one I want to talk about quick is ethyl acetate, which is sort of a solventy off flavor that isn't a fusel alcohol. I mean, I maybe it is. I mean, again, I'm not a chemist, so if it is a fusel, then I apologize to our listeners. It sounds like it's an ester produced by the esterification of alcohol during fermentation. It's used, ethyl acetate is used in glue, nail polish remover, and other household solvents. So you can imagine it's probably not too good to smell or to drink.
Right.
So this is one of these things where, like some off flavors or off aromas, in small quantities, ethyl acetate is a pear-like fruity or rose flavor and aroma, and it can be nice. If it's out of control, you can get an excess that causes this nail polish remover sort of aroma and flavor. So you want to pick a yeast that isn't going to throw too many esters. You want to monitor and control your actual fermentation temperatures to keep the temperatures from going up to a point where you're going to have this esterification and get the ethyl acetate. But what I thought was really interesting is that acetic acid is a precursor to ethyl acetate. So if you have a lot of acetic acid, the likelihood of you getting ethyl acetate goes way up. And acetic acid is caused by acetobacter in the air that can get in the beer. So I know some people, like myself, in certain sour beers like the acetic acid. I love the classic Duchess, and the Duchess is a freaking vinegar bomb. It's not supposed to be that way. It's probably out of style. A lot of people don't like it. I like that about it, but that's a personal preference. It's not not what the style says. Yeah,
give me a Rodenbach any day over that, please. Thank you.
No, I can't do Rodenbach either, honestly.
I stopped drinking the Duchess when about 2005. They had pretty much every bottle that got imported to the U.S. was a gusher. And I had like 3 in a row that were gushers. And I'm like, this is a problem, not just the bottles I've selected, but this is a problem with their overall import and production.
It's also a problem for your face with all that beer. Like, all this acid.
It wasn't that strong of a gusher, but it was a gusher.
I'm being sprayed with acid. Help me.
So, but yeah, I thought it was interesting that acetic acid is generally an off flavor, but that it can become a precursor to another bad off flavor that you don't want.
Okay, which is what?
The ethyl acetate.
Oh, okay, got it. Sorry, I thought it was a segue.
No, I wish, dude, that would imply that I prepared and was like all media savvy and stuff.
Hey man, don't tell anybody you've never prepared.
Well, I'm so prepared that this is an interesting segment here.
No, it comes
actually, hang on real quick. Let's take a final break. Right? Yeah, take our final break. We'll come back. We'll wrap up off flavors with Brian Schar on Dr. Homebrew. Don't go anywhere. All right. Thanks a lot for sticking around, everybody. Brian Schar, how many off flavors? You got 1 left, I think, right? Or 2? I can't remember.
I've got 2 left, and they're short ones.
All right, let's go.
The next one is mouse taint. which if anyone's listened to the Sour Hour, they would always talk about this in great detail. This is primarily in sour beer. And I think the best way, I think it was Jay from the Rare Barrel that had the best description, which have a sour beer, breathe in, breathe out, see if you can taste Cheerios, like if you've eaten Cheerios. And if you can taste that, then your beer has THP, aka mouse taint. So apparently,
the first person to ever introduce that to me was Dave, Flat-tailed Dave Marley.
Yeah,
I was like,
Dave
mouse
knows
taint.
a lot of stuff.
Well, because he didn't really clarify, right? And so I'm mouse taint. So I'm thinking, because I'm, stupid. The taint, like between, taint your dick and taint your butt, right?
Well, like you're thinking it's Dave up there in Oregon fucking licking mouse taint? Like, what is going on?
Basically what I asked him. I was like, what do you do up there, dude? Like, what is happening? And he didn't really get it. He's like, no, dumbass. It's, it's like tainted. Oh, okay, got it.
It's like the mice pee in the grain. Yeah,
right.
Because mice and rats don't have a bladder, so they just pee wherever they walk or run.
They don't have a bladder?
They're so disgusting. They have no bladder. So that's why that's one reason why they're so horrible for health is they just, whenever they have to go, they can't store it at all. They just pee everywhere. So yeah, if you got mice or rats, get rid of those fuckers because you don't want that mouse or rat pee everywhere.
So the chemical is tetrahydropyridine.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a good article on the Milk the Funk wiki. You can look it up. And I remember one time Keith and I were in the studio at the Hop Grenade, and we had this sour beer that had a little bit of the stuff in it. I didn't really know it at the time, and we judged it separately there. And I looked at him. He's like, "What do you get in this beer?" I'm like, "Cheerios." And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "That's THP." And I was like, "Wow, it's on the exhale." And part of that is because usually it's in sour beers. It's not as perceptible as the pH is lower in your mouth, but as you finish the beer, it dries off your tongue. The pH returns more to a normal, more neutral, and you exhale. All of a sudden, you taste that. It's like, oh man, Cheerios. But in the late palate on the exhale after it's gone off your tongue. So it's a weird thing. It's a really weird thing. I think some people say it's like a combination of Brett and the presence of oxygen causing that, but it's no good in wine or beer. The mouse taint of wine people hate it. The beer people, if you get too much of it in a sour beer, it just turns it from a really good sour to just like, okay, that's weird. Let's not have that one. Go to something else.
And apparently fixing it is, in most cases, a matter of aging, which you want to do to a sour beer anyway. And apparently aging it from 2 to 12 months will, in most cases, cause it to decompose. So that's good. So at least it's one that will go away in the time frame that you're going to be storing the beverage anyway. But that's just a thing to kind of keep in mind. So the last one that I wanted to discuss, and it's because I have a slight personal connection, is octanoic acid, which is apparently sometimes called caprylic acid sometimes.
What could possibly be your personal connection with octaprylic
I'll tell
acid?
you this in a second. So it's goaty, soapy, or waxy. So once I entered this Russian Imperial Stout in competition, and Beth Zangari was judging that. It was at Stern Grove, like 10 years ago, back when it was still judged at Stern Grove. And I was listening to her talking about this beer to some other judges about how it tasted. There was like a Crayola character to it. And I'm like, what the hell? That's crazy. How could a beer have Crayolas? It was my stout. So I got the score sheets back. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So
talking about you, bro.
How does this wax get in there? And like, I tasted it later on after I got that. I had some bottles left. I'm like, yeah, I get like a little bit of that wax. Well, what's interesting is it's released into beer from autolysis during maturation. So this is why I bottle conditioned this. I didn't have a ton of yeast at the bottom of the bottles, but this Russian Imperial Stout was probably like 3 or 4 years old when I entered it. I thought it was real good. And I think it did have a lot of great character to it, but probably the autolysis of that yeast at the bottom that's been sitting there for 4 years gave that little bit of Crayola character, that waxiness that was noticeable enough, because Beth's got a fantastic palate. So I don't doubt it was there at all. But that was really fascinating to me. And that's one where, yeah, it's just that kind of autolysis. Apparently, a little bit of this is acceptable in long matured lagers and lambics, but probably not in Russian Imperial Stout.
Yeah, probably
sort
not.
of the commonality between all these, some of the, if there's two lessons from all this, is that it's sanitation, sanitation, sanitation. Like 5-Star always says, you know, Star San, PBW, clean everything well, sanitize everything well, pitch enough yeast. Don't let your beer sit on the yeast for months on end. Again,
Amen, brother.
I'm not a believer in running off to a secondary for everything, but I'm also not a believer in letting your beer just sit on the yeast in a non-temperature controlled environment for months, because nothing good is going to come of that.
Yeah. So lazy brewers like me have that problem more often than people that pay attention and transfer things quickly to the, yeah.
I would think not lazy, but people that, you know, have a job and kids.
Yeah,
you don't always have time to, you know, rack the yeast. It's like freaking midnight and you're like, I'm exhausted. I'm going to bed. And like 5 nights in a row. Yeah. You gotta do stuff.
I have to dry hop that beer I started before the holiday. So yeah.
I'll do it tomorrow.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian. That was kind of
very
fun.
cool, dude.
You're very welcome.
Excellent.
So if you want to get a beer on the show, just email me, brian@thebrewingnetwork.com. And that may have been a little harsh transition, but we're trying to get out of here and get to bed.
Hey, man, it's fine.
Speaking of being busy and having kids and lives and stuff.
Yeah, you don't got to tell them that.
Dogs.
Yeah. That's all right.
Beer, mead, cider, brian@thebrewingnetwork.com. Let me know what you have. You might just want to get a little feedback on it. Is this good or not? Or you might be new to brewing. You might have been brewing for years and years and want to improve your beer that you've done 16 times. We don't care. We just want to taste your beer, taste what's there, judge it to style, tell you how we would make it better, and talk about it with you, which is half the fun.
Yeah. Kiss you on your forehead and send you on your way.
Yes.
You might just want to chat with the three of us and just enjoy the pleasantries that we
even JP.
There you go.
Sometimes
even
JP can be slightly pleasant.
Hey man, I'm offended. Thanks, William. All right, everybody, we're getting out of here. Thanks a lot very much for tuning in to Dr. Homebrew. We appreciate it. And until next time, we'll see you later.